It is over for James Cregg, which is very surprising, I think, for many of LSU fans. If nothing else, the timing is very curious when you talk about making a move on the offensive line. Now, I have been very critical of that unit over the last couple of seasons as far as development goes and recruiting goes. There has been very many examples that have come through here, that have come through Baton Rouge and LSU of missed opportunities for offensive line, offensive line recruits to get in the class. Most notably last year, guys like Tristan Lee, who ended up at Clemson. LSU was very much selling instant playing time and an opportunity to make an instant impact very early on here in what would have been his freshman season. Now, they do have some guys on the offensive line that were recruited at a high level. I think most notably would be Marcus Dumerville out of South Florida, who came in here as a left tackle and is still in the development stages of his game, has yet to really make an impact. Everybody has talked about the stories on Cardell Thomas. Where has he gone since some of the injuries and since his recruiting? And there has been criticism around Cregg's development, but more on his recruiting, on the ability to get guys onto campus. Now, I don't know what's going on off the field. We can speculate. I've heard things, but there is nothing official out there. Whether recruiting violations have happened, taken place, or something caused this sudden termination for Cregg to pop on a Wednesday afternoon in the beginning of June, where the dead period was just lifted in recruiting, and this weekend you've got a pair of 5-stars coming in from Texas that Cregg has been really the point man on. I mean, when you talk about Kelvin Banks, who's a 5-star tackle out of Humble, Texas, Summer Creek High School over there, he'll be in town this weekend. Another Humble, Texas native, Cam Dewberry, who goes to another high school over there in Humble, is a 5-star guy who is going to be in town this weekend. St. Thomas Aquinas down in Florida, which is the same school that Dumerville came out of in Florida.
Out there.
Pump talent.
Holy smokes.
One of their guys, Julian Armella, is coming over here. But look, I believe that Ogeron was the lead recruiter on Armella, or at least he was the one leading the charge in talking to into Armella's dad and kind of leading the way there. Then you think about some of the local guys on the offensive line. We talked about Will Campbell. Campbell is maybe the face of this class. And you're talking about guys like Walker Howard, who's a 5-star quarterback, and Howard's probably the face of it, but he's right there with Will Campbell. You got guys like Jacoby Matthews. You've got 5-stars all over this class. You've got name guys all over this class. I mean, there's some reports that Shaz Preston's about to pop. I mean, he's another name, big name. Aaron Anderson is a big-time prospect. But the offensive linemen in this class are as important as any group. Will Campbell being the headliner, Bo Bordelon being a guy from New Orleans and Newman who protects Arch Manning, but a very big-time recruit in his own right, is committed to this class. And then you think about somebody locally here in Baton Rouge of a guy like Emory Jones out of Catholic High, who's a must-get. I mean, he is a must-have for LSU with the offensive line, struggles that they've had. A guy like Emory Jones is a must-get for the stability of the future in that spot. So I'm not here to talk and speculate on why it went down. I think all that stuff will come out. And I really don't know. I don't have any information on this was the reason why Cregg was axed. I've heard some rumors and speculation on possible recruiting violations. Did Clemson turn him in on a recruiting vio? I've heard that, but nothing official. But one thing is official, is that Ed Ogeron is running out of equity on his hires because this was labeled an Ogeron guy, right? Worked with Cregg at the University of Tennessee when they coached together with Lane Kiffin, had kept up a relationship. He was at USC out there in California when they were together. and now he brought him in 2018 and has struggled on the offensive line. And I can tell you this, and I know this for certain, if Joe Brady would have been retained, if he'd have kept his job and not taken the Carolina Panthers job as the offensive coordinator after his one season in 2019 at LSU, his first order of business as the LSU offensive coordinator was going to be to get rid of James Cregg. He told that to Ed Ogeron. He told that to Steve Ensminger. He told that to the LSU administration at the time when they were negotiating his contract to be the offensive coordinator in 2020. His first order of business and his first move that he was going to make was to get rid of Cregg. And I don't know any personal stuff on it, but I know the professional breakdown on it was that Brady was very unimpressed with his development, his ability to develop offensive linemen. Brady saw a strategy and a scheme that he wanted his offensive linemen blocking in. Cregg wouldn't comply. I don't know what that says about the relationship between new offensive coordinator Jake Peetz and DJ Mangus. I have no idea on the stability or state of that relationship in the way that it works now, but it would make sense that those guys go through a spring together, they go through a small period of recruiting evaluation together, and maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe the offensive coordinator says, I want my guy.
I just heard about the possible violations. I thought at first it was they just didn't, the new scheme they're going with, they just didn't think it would fit with the way of the block, and it was like, oh, all right, that's why they canned them.
And this is purely speculation on my part also, but I just heard that for the first time about Joe Brady, and Peetz and Mangus being Joe Brady guys, maybe he kind of put a seed in their head too, like, look, bro, if you can find a way to get a new offensive line coach when you get down there, like that would be my first order of business if I were you guys. Possibly.
I do know that for fact, though. And what it means to Cregg and the new offensive coordinator, I don't have the information on. The timing on this is very curious.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The timing on this is what makes it stink.
Wasted the whole spring.
You know, I mean, the stench of this will be tough to get past if you can't find a guy. Or, to me, when I first saw the news release come out last night, my first thought was, he's got his guy.
That's what you would hope, huh? Is that you don't really pull the trigger this quickly with no.
Yeah,
there's no pressure on you to make this firing right now in terms of public. Like nobody really knows anything. Everybody started digging after the firing was made, so there was no real actual pressure on Coach O to do this. So he could have taken his time and found somebody to replace him instead of just firing him like off the hip.
Mm-hmm.
It's curious on the timing. Now, where do you go from here, right? Because timing is not your friend. You've got guys coming in this weekend that are huge offensive line commitments. There's obviously going to be some restoration that needs to be done with the current commits. Will Campbell, as we said, from what I've been able to gather and trading a couple of text messages with Campbell this morning, he's on his way to Baton Rouge on an unofficial visit. And I'd imagine that LSU within the last 24 hours has been urging that to happen so they can get some face-to-face with what could be the face of the 22 recruiting class.
You were saying Saturday, there's 2 5-stars coming. How do you fix that? What do you say?
You put Coach O into overdrive.
Well, I mean,
fired your offensive line coach.
You have Thursday and Friday to make this happen. I'm telling you that they need to make it higher by 3 o'clock today.
What do you do on Saturday if there's no coach?
Well, then you then you let Jake Peetz and you let DJ Mangus and you let Kevin Falk and you let Ed Ogeron.
Yeah, you just star blind them. You just hit them with so many faces and coaches and everything. They're like, oh, it's a whirlwind of fun.
The
you
whole
don't even realize.
staff.
Yeah, you don't even realize you didn't realize that you didn't meet the offensive line.
I mean, I hope Peetz has endless say in the offensive line. I want to be Peetz's guy.
Same way we'd want it to be Brady's guy.
Yes.
We want it to fit the offense we want to run.
For sure. Well, I think that's and to me, this is something that you figure out in interviews. This is something that you discuss when you're talking about what the philosophy is going to be on offense and how the scheme lines up with a new plan. If you're bringing in a new designer in Jake Peetz and DJ Mangus, well, then you got to let them know who some of the, what some of the advantages or what some of the schemes that the coaches on staff that they're going to be working alongside with are going to be. Now, whether that was, hey, look, you guys can go through spring and then give me your evaluation after that on where we stand. Yeah. Maybe that was a conversation that they had. But again, I would imagine that timing would be, talked about is as far as the calendar goes, you're going to really put yourself behind the 8 ball. Yeah. But you're still LSU. Like, at the end of the day, you've still got money in the bank that you can offer, and you still are a name-recognized school that brings a ton of cachet to a resume. So there's a lot of people out there that are picking up their phone and asking their representation to find out what the deal is. What's going on over there?
They may not even interview me. They might just hire me.
You know what I mean? Or maybe there is a list, and I've heard some names, and I'll give you a couple of guys that I've heard from everybody that I've talked to that is in and around this situation. That one common name that I've heard as far as a wish list, I don't know if this is on top of the list, but guys that are around that program that would want to work with continues to be Ben Wilkerson. Wilkerson was the center on the 2003 national championship team. He came in that recruiting class, Nick Saban's first headline recruiting class, with Michael Clayton, with Marcus Spears, with Marquise Hill, with all those guys that won the national championship. Laurent went in that class. He came in a later class. Yeah. But Spears, Clayton, and Corey Webster was in that class. No, Corey Webster was the year before. But Clayton, Spears were the headliners. Marquise Hill was another one. Ben Wilkerson was one of the stalwarts of that class. I mean, he was a 3-year starter that won the Remington Award his final season in Baton Rouge as the best center in the game. He's bounced around coaching stops. He's been back at LSU. In fact, he spent time on LSU staff when guys like T-Bob Hebert and Will Blackwell and that crew was coming through here. He was not the offensive line coach. He was an assistant and now serves as an assistant offensive line coach to the New York Giants, which, by the way, I had no idea. The Giants staff is just littered with Louisiana people. I mean, Tyke Tolbert is the wide receivers coach. He played at LSU. Russ Callaway is up there now, who was the offensive analyst here at LSU last season. Thomas McGahee is the special teams coordinator up there, and the offensive line coach for the New York Giants. Ben Wilkerson is the offensive line assistant with the Giants. The offensive line coach is Rob Sale, who played at LSU, and for the last 3 seasons has been on Billy Napier's staff over at Louisiana Lafayette, who really makes a ton of sense as far as familiarity, very good in recruiting, very good relationship builder, and a guy that I know was kind of asking around a couple of months ago when he was thinking about making a move of, is that offensive line job in Baton Rouge, is it secure?
They really like him.
Could it open up?
Give it a minute.
So those are 2 guys with LSU ties. And then the other names that are popping is Brad Davis from Arkansas continues to be discussed. Davis is obviously up there in Fayetteville. He was on the Florida staff in 2017. He spent the previous he spent the next 2 seasons at Missouri as their offensive line coach, and now he is in Arkansas as the Hogs coach. Another name that I continue to hear is Alex Atkins. If you follow Matt Moscona on social media, this is the name that Moscona feels like is the leader in the clubhouse right now. Atkins is the Florida State offensive line coach. He is a very good recruiter. He has got good relationships with guys like Emory Jones. He is a guy that surely is a name to pay attention to. Avery Atkins and Brad Davis are 2 guys that you should probably pay attention to that are on staffs right now. Kevin Mawai, who was with the Indianapolis Colts and has spent some time on college staffs over the past couple of seasons. He's been with Herm Edwards in Arizona State as an offensive analyst and just brought in to Indianapolis on Frank Reich's staff, is serving as an offensive line coach. He's an LSU guy, a Hall of Famer, and somebody at certain points during his post-playing career has been very much interested in joining LSU staff. Whether that line is still open, I'd imagine that the line is still open, whether the passion is still there to coach at the college level after getting the experience in the NFL is going to, I don't know. Do you have that conversation? You have that conversation with Mawai. You make him tell you no. Those are just some of the names that I continue to hear that could be replacements for the ousted Cregg in just the past 10 hours since the news has gone down.
So
did I say Avery Atkins on the Florida State guy? It's Alex Atkins. I'm sorry. Avery Atkins obviously is the place kicker for LSU. It's Alex Atkins.
That'd be an interesting hire.
Is the
local hire?
The Florida State coach.
Do you think that there's a world where this is an upgrade, right?
What's that?
There's a world where like this coaching change could be an upgrade.
Huge.
Yes.
Enormous.
Okay.
Cregg was that's
what I thought.
A bad recruiter. I mean, like that's being nice. I mean, think about what you're selling on LSU's offensive line this year, and he only got one guy. You got Garrett Dellinger. They had to go out there and throw a lifeline, a Hail Mary to a JUCO guy and flip him late in the process in the Mateo, or the big junior college Samoan who came in. So
even with this being so late in the process, it can still be spun to be a good thing. Like a guy comes in and gets his system straight, whips ass, and then
can develop a little.
Yeah, we forget that this even kind of happened. Like, thank God, almost.
100%. I think if there was anybody on this staff that was, after all the turnover that you experienced within the last 5 months, that was looking around saying, damn, I made it.
Yeah, forgot about
was
me.
James Cregg.
Went to the bathroom at the right time.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's the one that was really like, damn, they're going to keep me.
All right. Hell yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's see if we can get this thing going.
See if we can fuck this up.
Yeah, right. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. One thing is that people are starting to talk about it, and I think it's fair, is O's ability to keep coaches interested and keep his hires. I guess that's not the way to say it. In keeping coaches interested in his hires working out. I think you look at last season with Pelini, Linehan. You look at Canada. You look at guys like James Cregg that just are terminated in the middle of a recruiting session where. It's obvious to say, look, if there's no recruiting violations and you make the move now, you're admitting it's not working out. And by the way, if you terminate him without cause, and if anything comes out about recruiting violations, obviously that would be with cause. But if there is no cause here, you still owe him $700K. I mean, how much money do we have to dish out for bad hires? It's one thing to compare a staff and a head coach to a program that's turning over their staff every single year, but that staff is going to get jobs.
Mm-hmm.
They're promoting their career. They're going on to better places.
Look at the Alabama coaching tree.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I'm saying without saying it, because everybody wants to compare there, but I mean, those guys are turning over for bigger and better jobs every year. LSU staff is, being terminated and, just being fired without cause. Just asked not to come back. And I know Scott Linehan's working over in Jacksonville, but I mean,
he got a job again.
That's how the NFL. Yeah, that's how the NFL coaching world works. Like
the NFL's a big frat.
Yeah.
I mean, even Jerry Sullivan, that you bring in for a year and you sell to the public of he's the savior of the offense, almost. After one season, he's out.
A 90-year-old man coaching wide receivers.
I don't know. I expect something to come out on it, because it's just the timing just doesn't make a lot of sense. I'd imagine that Ogeron will be asked about it.